Welcome to the Leadership and Learning Podcast with Dr. JBT, where we dive deep into the art of leadership for emerging and advancing leaders. Whether you're just starting out or looking to sharpen your skills, this podcast is your go-to resource. We'll explore real-world scenarios, actionable solutions, and expert advice with insights drawn from Dr. JBT's own experiences and interviews with seasoned leaders. If you're serious about growing as a leader, you've come to the right place. Welcome back to the Leadership and Learning Podcast with Dr. JBT. I was listening to another podcast the other day and I heard a quote. It said, "A candle loses nothing by lighting another." Let me say that again. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. And I had to pause the podcast. And I would share it if I could remember which one it was, but it was the phrase that stood out to me. And so I cannot recall. If I remember, I will add it to the show notes. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. I immediately started thinking about what that means. Because I think that one sentence captures something that too many leaders have forgotten, and some never learned in the first place. Recognition, acknowledgement, celebrating the people around you, lighting someone else's candle. It cost you nothing, and yet it changes everything. Today, we're talking about one of the most underused tools in a leader's toolkit, the practice of encouraging the heart. We're going to talk about why it matters, what gets in the way, and how to build it into your leadership in a way that feels genuine and consistent. Let's dive in. Before we talk about what to do, I want to talk about how to think. Because here's what I've noticed about leaders who don't recognize their people. It's rarely because they don't care. It's usually because one of these next three things that I'm going to share with you. The first is busyness. Leaders are moving so fast, putting out so many fires, managing so many priorities that pausing to acknowledge someone feels like a luxury that they cannot afford. Therefore, recognition gets pushed to the back burner and oftentimes then never really happens. The second is assumption. They assume their people already know that they're valued. They think, I hired them, I pay them, I give them good work. Isn't that enough? But here's the truth. People need to hear it. Feeling valued and being told you're valued are two completely different experiences. The third is scarcity thinking. This one can be dangerous. This is the one I really want you to think about. Some leaders unconsciously believe that recognizing someone else somehow diminishes their own standing. That shining a light on someone else's contribution makes their own light a little dimmer. That's the candle myth, and it couldn't be more wrong. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. Your light doesn't get smaller when you illuminate someone else. It gets bigger, the room gets brighter, and the people around you, they burn longer and stronger because of it. Recognition isn't a resource that ever runs out. It's one of the few things in leadership that multiplies the more you give it away. One of my favorite leadership books, and one I use in a leadership course I teach, is The Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. In their research, they identified 5 practices of exemplary leadership, and one of them, Encourage the Heart, speaks directly to what we're talking about today. Kouzes and Posner found through decades of research that the leaders who get the best out of their employees are the ones who make recognition a consistent, intentional practice. Not a once-a-year performance review, not a generic Employee of the Month plaque. And to be fair, those things, it's not that they don't matter, because they really do. It's just about what's in addition to them. Leaders need to provide genuine, specific, personal acknowledgement of the contributions people make every single day. They identified 2 key commitments under this practice. The first is to recognize contributions, to acknowledge individual excellence and tie it directly to the values of the team and organization. The second is to celebrate the values and victories, to create a culture where wins are shared, where effort is honored, and where people feel seen not just for what they produce, but for who they are. Here's a line from the research that has stayed with me. People who feel appreciated are more productive, more engaged, and more committed to the people they work with. Wouldn't we like to have those people on our team? Hear that again. The research says people who feel appreciated are more productive, more engaged, and more committed to the people they work with. That is a powerful finding. That's the result of exemplary leadership. You want those people on your team? It's up to you as a leader. Yet recognition remains one of the most consistent, underdeveloped practices in leadership. And again, it isn't because leaders don't know it matters, the research's there, but rather because they haven't built it into how they lead. So let's get practical. Mindset without action is just intention. Intention without follow-through is just a good idea that never happened. So let's get some ideas on how we can do this. Here are 3 ways to build recognition into the rhythm of how you lead. I encourage you to think beyond these 3 because there are a lot of creative ways to incorporate it into your leadership. The first is called High Five Fridays. Now, this one I learned from one of my students. I thought it was such a great idea that I have adopted it as well. I love learning from my students. At the end of every week, before your team logs off, take 5 minutes to recognize someone or a few people for something specific that they did that week. And don't make this a vague, great job, everyone, but a real named acknowledgement. Say it to the person or the team, but use their name. Then say specifically what they did that stood out to you. And if you can, connect it to a value within the organization. Specific, personal, public, or at least in front of their boss. And I say that because it doesn't mean you only do High Five Fridays to people that report direct to you. You can do this with peers and other team members cross-functionally. And then progress, not just completion. People need to know that ongoing effort matters as much as the final product. So let me say those again: specific, personal, public, and progress. And that is what will make it land. High Five Fridays does something else too. It ends the week on energy. People walk into the weekend feeling seen, and they come back on Monday ready to give that same energy again. The second is Motivating Mondays. I liked my students' idea of High Five Fridays so well that I came up with Motivating Mondays. While High Five Fridays close the week with gratitude, Motivating Mondays open the week with momentum. This is your chance as a leader to set the tone, to remind your team why the work matters, to cast a vision for what the week ahead could produce, and to call out the strengths you see in your people before they've even had a chance to use them. It might sound like this. This week, we have a big deliverable coming up. I know this team. I've watched what you do under pressure, and I'm not worried because you have everything you need to make this week exceptional. Sometimes I'll highlight the progress made the prior week and build momentum for the work of the week ahead. It recognizes the continued contribution from everyone. We end one of our division meetings with recognition. Anyone can do a shout out about what they saw in someone else on the team recently. This is motivating for those who are named, but also for those observing. It's a great opportunity to showcase high performers that represent the values of the team. As a leader, you're not just managing tasks, you're fueling people, and people who feel fueled before the week starts show up differently than people who don't. The third practice is the simplest and often the most powerful, the personal note. In a world of Slack messages and G-chats, group emails, a handwritten note or even a thoughtful personal email lands really differently. It says, I stopped, I thought about you specifically, and I wanted you to know. Kouzes and Posner talk about this extensively, the power of personal recognition that doesn't get lost in the noise of a team meeting or a group announcement. Something just for that person, something they can hold on to. One of the values on the team I'm leading is learning. I had a few team members present at a conference recently where they had the opportunity to train their peers at other institutions. This was above and beyond their job description. So I sent them a note thanking them for their presentation, what their influence means to the team, and connected it to learning because peer-to-peer learning is so important. I could have done a templated email, but I didn't. It was important to write a unique note to each of them. Let me tell you, it doesn't have to be long and it doesn't have to be eloquent. It has to be genuine and personal. Let me bring it back to where we started. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. Your recognition of someone else doesn't diminish you. It doesn't cost your standing, your credibility, or your light. In fact, it does quite the opposite. It amplifies everything. The energy of your team, the culture of your organization, and the kind of leader you are becoming. Kouzes and Posner didn't call it encourage the heart by accident, because recognition isn't just a management technique. It's a human act. It's choosing to see people really see them, and then tell them what you see. Here are 3 things to take with you this week. 1, start High Five Fridays this week. Pick one person, say something specific, watch what happens. 2, open Monday with energy. Before you dive into the task list, take 2 minutes to fuel your team. Remind them who they are and what they're capable of. 3, write one personal note this week to someone who deserves to hear it. Do not overthink it, just write it. And remember, a candle loses nothing by lighting another. Go light some candles. This is Leadership and Learning with Dr. JBT signing off.